You know, we really need to start our history project.
Work, video games. I'm leaning a little bit more towards video games.
Yeah, me too.
What's the project even about? What are we doing?
Well, it's about a Fort Pillow massacre or something like that.
What's the importance of a petty pillow pugnacity?
Hey, somebody say something about buying a new car?
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Pillow fight! Woo! Yeah!
One of the most controversial battles in the Civil War happened at the site of Fort Pillow. This fort was named after the Southern Brigadier General Gideon Johnson Pillow. Pillow was reportedly a cowardly and ineffective general, and these were bad omens for the Union garrison staying in the fort of his name. The Fort Pillow was built in early 1862 in Lauderdale County, Tennessee, very close to the Mississippi River. This fort was under Confederate control for much of the war, up until 1864, when the Confederate garrison occupying Fort Pillow had to leave in order to avoid being cut off from the actual Confederate army. It was then that the Union troops entered Tennessee and found the fort abandoned. It was then that they took it with a garrison of half-black and half-white volunteers, all under the control of Majors Lionel F. Booth and William F. Bradford. Soon afterwards, the Confederacy re-entered Tennessee with 3,000 men to lead a campaign to retake the state, and at its head was none other than a Tennessee-born Major General, Nathan Bedford Forrest. Now at this time, much of West Tennessee was fought over, being an area of high importance, and Forrest is credited with saying, "The whole of West Tennessee is overrun by bands and squads of robbers, horse thieves, and deserters, whose depredations and unlawful appropriations of private property are rapidly and effectually depleting the entire country." It was after marching upon Tennessee that Bradford Forrest discovered that the fort was being occupied by a Union garrison, and it was then that he decided to retake the fort using the men under his control. The battle soon commenced.
Confederacy!
Forrest attacked the fort on March 16, 1864. He had a total of about 1,500 to 2,500 soldiers at his disposal, which fought against the 580 Union soldiers stationed at the fort. The Union soldiers were split almost evenly between blacks and whites, with 295 white soldiers and 262 black soldiers. The Union soldiers had no chance. They were greatly outnumbered and had several other disadvantages. The fort had several design flaws. To fire from the fort, soldiers had to climb on to the top of the parapets, inadvertently exposing themselves to Confederate fire. The fort also kept a store of whiskey, and some soldiers were thought to be drunk. The battle turned out so the Confederates lost almost no soldiers, and the Union lost the most. 350 of the 580 Union soldiers were killed, 60 were wounded, and 164 were captured or missing. Many soldiers of both races were lost, but the black soldiers received the brunt of the brutality. Of the 262 black soldiers, 77% of them died or were wounded, versus the 43% of whites who died or were wounded. Much of the violence was contributed to the massive confusion caused by the battle and split actions of the soldiers. Some soldiers surrendered quickly after the battle began, but some stayed and fought, and many ran out into the water behind the fort, where multiple Union ships were stationed, shooting as they ran. Some claim the massacre was had, not through confusion of the battle, but because of racism and hatred. They claim that, even though the Union soldiers had raised the white flag of surrender, Confederate soldiers continued firing indiscriminately. Whatever happened, many Union soldiers died, and the Confederacy looked bad.
This battle was viewed primarily as a bloody massacre, that it was an abhorrent display of violent racism on the side of the Confederacy. This greatly angered the Northerners, especially that the South would not accept African Americans as prisoners of war. Should an African American soldier be caught, he would not be sent to a camp, waiting for ransom or trade from the Union. He would be sold into slavery, living the life of what he was trying to stop. Throughout the entire Civil War, Northerners were getting more and more open to the idea of freed African Americans. They saw African Americans as more deserving of freedom, that they earned their freedom through fighting, especially when they were fighting side by side with Caucasians, people who had previously bound them for 200 years, and especially since every fight was more dangerous for them. Through this joining of African American and Caucasian fighters, both groups fought harder for the goal of stopping Southern ideologies and, for some, abolishing slavery, and were more focused in their fighting, as well as more unified.